Let me tell you something that most folks won't say out loud, especially when the wrinkles start setting in and society quietly nudges you into the background. But I've lived long enough to know better. There's a truth about women over 70 that people don't like to talk about. They still want connection. They still crave excitement, not out of desperation, not out of loneliness that smells like pity. It's deeper than that. It's real and raw and alive. I've seen it in their eyes, I've heard it in their voices, and I've felt it in the gentle tremble of their hands when they tell me the truth. So here's what I've learned. 5 honest confessions, 5 open windows into why women well into their 70s still seek the company of men. And believe me, these confessions don't come from novels or fairy tales. They come from real women I've known. Women who've lived full lives and still believe there's more to feel, more to laugh about, more to share before the final curtain. First, let me paint a picture. Picture a woman named Judith, 74 years old, 3 grown kids, widowed for nearly a decade. Her house is quiet except for the old radio she leaves on in the kitchen. When she sits across from me with a glass of tea, she says it straight. I want a man who looks at me and sees me. Not the mother, not the grandmother. Me. There's a fire in her that didn't go out when her husband passed. She still dresses with care, not for vanity, but because it feels good to look like she gives a damn. And she does. She told me once that excitement isn't just for the young, it's for the living. And she's still very much alive. That's her confession. She's not done being a woman, she's not done being wanted, and she's not going to apologize for it. Then there's Ellie, 80, a little slower on her feet but sharp as a tack. She leaned in one afternoon and said something that stuck with me. I miss flirting, just a little, just enough to feel like someone notices. You see, Ellie doesn't want another husband. She did that once and did it well, but she misses the dance. That electric little moment when a man says something and her heart skips just a bit. She doesn't need a grand romance or a diamond ring, just someone who makes her feel interesting, seen, maybe even a little giddy. That's what excitement looks like at 80. It's not about chasing some youthful fantasy. It's about feeling like she still matters in a room, that her words still count, that someone still wants to listen and laugh and maybe, if the stars are right, hold her hand as they walk. Now take Gloria, 78. She'd been through 2 divorces and raised 4 kids mostly on her own. She's not bitter, she's not closed off. She said something once that got me thinking for days. I'm not afraid of dying alone. I'm afraid of living without intimacy. That's her confession, and it's the kind of honesty that hits you in the gut. People assume that past a certain age, intimacy doesn't matter anymore. But Gloria would tell you that it matters more than ever. Not just the physical kind, the emotional closeness, the quiet comfort of a man reaching out just because he wants to, the thrill of shared secrets, the warmth of lying in bed talking about everything and nothing. That's what she seeks, not someone to fix her, not someone to rescue her, just someone to be with, to feel that spark that says, you still have something to give, and someone still wants to receive it. Then there's Nora, 76, a retired teacher with a bookshelf full of classics and a heart that refuses to rust. She said something during a rainy afternoon walk that stopped me in my tracks. I spent my whole life being responsible. I want a little bit of reckless. She wasn't talking about skydiving or buying a motorcycle. She was talking about laughing too loud in a cafe with a man who tells her she's beautiful, about sneaking kisses in the grocery store aisle, about getting dressed up for no reason other than meeting a man for coffee and feeling her heart thud like it used to. That's her brand of excitement, a little break from the patterns and routines, a small rebellion against the idea that life after 70 should be quiet and gray. She wants color. She wants to wake up and not know exactly how the day will unfold. And yes, she wants a man to be part of that. Finally, there's Margaret, 81, the oldest and maybe the wisest of the bunch. She's lived through wars, births, deaths, and everything in between. She looked me dead in the eye one evening and said, I want someone to remember with. That's her confession, not one about passion or flirtation, but about shared history. She wants to sit on the porch with a man who remembers the Beatles and when phones had cords and cars had soul. She wants someone who understands what it meant to dance in the 50s, to protest in the 60s, to raise kids in the 70s. Someone who gets the jokes because they live the punchlines. That kind of connection doesn't come from Facebook or dating apps. It comes from looking at someone and saying, "You were there too, weren't you?" And that shared knowing, that's what she seeks. So there it is, 5 women, 5 confessions, all of them over 70, all of them still reaching for something real. And if you think it's about clinging to youth or being afraid of being alone, then you've missed the point. It's about honoring the fact that excitement doesn't age, that connection doesn't retire, that a woman's heart doesn't stop beating just because her skin gets softer and her walk gets slower. I've heard folks say things like, "At that age, what's the point?" And I say the point is the same as it's always been: to feel, to connect, to matter. These women don't want to be put on a shelf. They want to be held, listened to. They want to flirt, laugh, cry, and share meals that taste better with company. They want to sit by the fire and not have to explain why their eyes still search the room when a man walks in. Maybe you're like me, getting older every day. Maybe you're wondering what's left after all the big moments pass. Let me tell you what's left. The small ones, the quiet glances, the late night talks, the shared stories, the second or third or fourth chance at feeling alive. And if you're lucky, someone to hold your hand through it all. So if you see a woman over 70 looking a little brighter because she has a date tonight, don't laugh, don't assume, just understand. She's chasing something honest, something that doesn't come in youth or beauty or newness. It comes in the ache of experience and the thrill of still having something left to discover. Because truth be told, we don't stop needing connection. We just get better at knowing what it looks like. And sometimes that looks a whole lot like an old man and an old woman, sitting together, smiling quietly, knowing that the best part of the story might still be waiting to be told. Now let's clear some common questions. Why is shared history and generational understanding so meaningful to older women seeking companionship? Let me tell you something I've come to understand, not from books or lectures or TV talk shows, but from sitting across tables, park benches, and living room couches with women who have lived 7 or even 8 full decades. When an older woman talks about companionship, you might think she's talking about comfort or safety or someone to help change a light bulb, but you'd be missing the soul of it. What she's really talking about, what she's reaching for in that quiet but stubborn way, is shared history. That's not nostalgia. That's not just memories. It's the deep ache and peace that comes from looking into the eyes of someone who remembers the same world you do. Someone who lived it alongside you. Not with you, necessarily, but alongside you. A man who remembers what it was like when Elvis first shook his hips on black and white TV. Who knows the smell of leaded gasoline and remembers when a dollar felt like it could feed a whole family. That's what makes her heart stir. Not because she can't move on, but because she wants to feel like she still belongs somewhere. And a man who shares that generational rhythm gives her that place. You see, it's not just about having someone to talk to, it's about not having to explain every little thing. I remember sitting with Margaret, a woman I admired more than I could ever say. She was 79 at the time and full of quiet strength. We were talking about a Johnny Mathis record playing in the background, and she said, "I don't want to have to explain why this song makes me cry. I want someone who just knows." That hit me hard, because when you've lived as long as we have, words start to feel a little tired. You want someone who feels it with you without needing all the background. When two people share a timeline, even if they came from different corners of the world, there's a shorthand, a look, a reference, a quiet smile that says, "Yes, I remember that too." And that makes all the difference. These women aren't looking for someone to relive the past with. They're not stuck in time, but they do want someone who understands the weight and beauty of their story. Someone who gets that when she talks about the Vietnam War, it's not something she saw in a textbook. It was something she lived through, with friends who didn't come back. When she says she wore gloves to church or that her first job paid 75 cents an hour, she wants someone who nods because he was there too. That kind of understanding is rare. You can't fake it, and you can't rush it. It's born from decades, and that's why, to these women, It feels so comforting, so grounding, so real. And it's not just about remembering the big moments, it's about the smaller ones too. Like how milk used to come in glass bottles on the porch, or how you'd wait by the phone on a Friday night, praying he'd call. It's the way the world felt before everything went digital and distant. And when an older woman finds a man who remembers those same things, there's a quiet kind of magic. It's like walking into a room you forgot existed and realizing someone else has been waiting there too. That connection, built not on surface excitement, but on deep, lived experience, is worth more than gold at that age. I've also seen how shared generational understanding brings a kind of safety, not physical safety, emotional safety. Women who've been through heartache, betrayal, even widowhood, they carry invisible scars. And when they're with someone who doesn't get their references or who lives in a world that moves too fast, they can feel even more alone. But sit them next to a man who remembers rotary phones and family dinners and handwritten letters, and suddenly she lets her guard down. She doesn't have to explain why she folds towels a certain way or why she clutches her purse on public transit. He just gets it. He knows. And that knowing opens doors that have been shut a long time. One woman I knew, Clara, said to me once, "It's not just about who I am now, it's about who I was then. I want someone who sees both." That kind of statement doesn't come from just wanting a date or some company to pass the time. That's about wanting to be seen in your entirety, as the girl who danced at sock hops, the woman who raised kids with coupons and casseroles, the grandmother who now watches those kids raise kids of their own. And it's only someone who's walked that same road who can really see her that way. Young men, they might be kind, respectful, but they don't know. They don't know what it's like to hear news of Kennedy's assassination on the radio or to watch Neil Armstrong take that first step while holding your breath. They don't know what it felt like to iron everything, even handkerchiefs, or to live in a world where shame and pride coexisted so tightly. And because they don't know, they can't truly walk beside her in the way she wants. Shared history isn't just about memory, it's about identity. These women spent decades building a life, holding families together, losing and finding themselves. And when they meet someone who's also done that, there's a deep mutual respect, a silent "I know what it took." And in that mutual recognition, there's comfort. There's excitement too, believe it or not. The excitement of knowing that even after all this time, someone still understands the rhythm of your heart. So yes, shared history matters. Generational understanding matters. Not because these women are clinging to the past, but because they want to move forward with someone who honors it. Someone who knows the music, the fears, the hopes that shape them. And when they find that, it's not just companionship, it's communion. It's the kind of connection that doesn't need fireworks or fancy dinners. Just two chairs on a porch, a couple of old stories, and someone to say, "I remember that too." And in that moment for her, everything feels right. Everything feels alive again. How do friendships with men differ from romantic intentions for these women? And when does the line between companionship and romantic interest blur? Let me tell you something that takes years to really understand. It's not written in the pages of any manual or whispered about in fancy cocktail parties. No, this kind of truth only comes to light through long days, quiet nights, and conversations that stretch over coffee cups and old kitchen tables. When you've lived long enough, you start to see things for what they are. And one of the hardest things to pin down, especially for women in their 70s and beyond, is the difference between friendship with a man and something more. Because the line between companionship and romantic interest, well, that line gets softer with time. It blurs. Sometimes it disappears altogether, and you don't always see it until your heart stirs in a way you didn't expect. Friendship with a man, for many of these women, starts as a beautiful, simple thing. It's easy, it's kind, it's someone to laugh with, talk to, maybe take a walk or share a meal. And after years of caregiving, raising families, and often being the emotional rock for everyone else, just having someone who listens, really listens, can feel like a breath of fresh air. There's no pressure in it, no need to impress, no makeup or pretense, just presence. A man's voice on the phone, his footsteps beside hers on the sidewalk, his calm nod when she shares something she's never quite said out loud. That's friendship at its finest. It's companionship built on understanding, on rhythm, on the comfort of not needing to fill the silence. But here's where it gets tricky. When a woman finds herself looking forward to those walks a little more than she expected, when she fixes her hair just a bit before they meet, when her heart beats a little faster when she sees his name on her caller ID, that's when the friendship starts to shift. Not because she planned it, not because she's chasing romance like a teenager, but because emotions have a way of slipping through the cracks no matter how old we are. You see, we never really stop being human. We never outgrow the desire to feel wanted, to feel chosen, and when a man makes her feel seen, it can wake something in her that's been quiet for a long time. Some women will tell you that they want friendship and only friendship, and they mean it, at least at first. But then something changes. Maybe he reaches across the table and touches her hand just a little longer than usual. Maybe they laugh so hard over something silly that she feels the years peel away. Maybe she catches herself thinking about him before she falls asleep. That's when the line starts to blur, not with fanfare or fireworks, but with the gentle warmth of connection growing into something more tender, something deeper. Now, not all friendships turn into romance, and not all women want them to. But the emotional closeness, the vulnerability, the shared time, they all create fertile ground for feelings to grow. I remember one woman, Joan, who told me, "He was just my friend," until one day he wasn't. She didn't mean he changed. She meant her heart did. She didn't fall in love like she did when she was 20. It was different, slower, softer, but just as real. And she wasn't quite sure what to do with it. That's the thing. At this stage in life, we think we're done with surprises. But then someone comes along, makes you laugh, makes you feel safe, and suddenly you're looking at them differently. That's when friendship begins to stretch towards something else. What makes this all even more delicate is that many women in their 70s and beyond have lived through love already. Some have lost it, some walked away from it. Some carry scars they don't speak of often. So the idea of romance can feel both thrilling and terrifying. Friendship feels safe. It has boundaries. But when those boundaries begin to shift, when the heart gets involved, it stirs up questions. Does he feel the same? Would taking the next step ruin what we have? Am I ready to feel that vulnerable again? These aren't easy questions, and they don't come with easy answers. Some women hold back. They keep it as friendship because the risk feels too big. Others lean in. They admit to themselves that what started as companionship has become something more. And when both hearts are open, it can turn into a love story that's just as powerful as any from youth. A different kind of love, yes. One without the urgency of time or the pressure of building a life, but a love that says, "You matter to me, and I choose you again and again." That kind of love is rare, and when it grows from friendship, it's deeply rooted. But let me tell you, even when the line between friendship and romance stays blurry, even when nothing is said aloud, the connection can still be beautiful. Some women choose not to name it. They just enjoy what it is. They enjoy the closeness, the laughter, the shared meals, and the way his presence makes the days feel lighter. They may never call it love, but they feel it, and sometimes that's enough. So how do friendships with men differ from romantic intentions for these women? At first, it's all about intention. Friendship offers comfort, trust, and steady companionship. Romance adds a layer of vulnerability, of desire, of longing. But both start from the same place: the need to connect, to not be alone, to share this season of life with someone who understands. The line between the two is not always clear, and that's not a flaw. That's just the way life is: messy, beautiful, unexpected. In the end, what matters most is that she feels seen, that someone hears her laugh and knows what makes it rise, that someone remembers her stories, not just the words but the feelings behind them. Whether it's called friendship or romance or something in between, what matters is the warmth it brings, the joy, the companionship, the silent understanding that even in this later chapter, the heart still wants to be held and deserves to be. What do women over 70 ultimately want to feel before the end of life? And how does the presence of a man help them reach that emotional horizon? Let me tell you something that's taken me a lifetime to understand. Not just as a man, but as someone who's had the honor of sitting beside women in their 70s, 80s, even 90s. Women who have lived through decades of love, loss, duty, and laughter. You can see it in their eyes. They've weathered storms and raised families, buried husbands and cared for friends who faded before their time. And when they speak softly in those moments of honesty, the kind that come late at night or over a quiet cup of tea, you realize something powerful. What they ultimately want to feel before the end of life isn't anything grand or complicated. It's not riches or recognition or even perfect health. It's something far more tender. They want to feel cherished, deeply, honestly, simply. They want to feel like their presence still matters to someone, like their stories, their laugh, the soft lines on their face are still seen with warmth and not just with polite indifference. Now, this isn't about needing a man to be whole. No, these women are already whole. They've carried the weight of generations on their backs. But the presence of a man at this point in life, a good man, a kind man, can offer a kind of emotional grace that's hard to describe until you've witnessed it. It's not about the fire of youth anymore. It's not about passion in the way the movies used to tell it. It's about feeling deeply known, about sitting across from someone who looks at you and doesn't just see your age. He sees you. The girl who once danced barefoot in the kitchen, the mother who stayed up through nights of fevers and teenage heartbreaks, the woman who still aches for the friends she lost in 1972. That kind of seeing, that kind of presence, can unlock a part of the heart that's been quiet for years. You see, women over 70 have usually spent a lifetime putting others first. They've nurtured, supported, built lives with their bare hands. And now, as the world slows down around them, they want to be reminded that their soul still sparkles, that they're still capable of stirring emotion in someone else. The presence of a man can do that, not because he fixes anything, but because his steady companionship says, "You're not done yet. You're still worthy of care, of laughter, of warmth." That reminder means more than most people know. I remember once talking with a woman named Evelyn. She was 81, sharp as a tack, and had this laugh that could light up a whole room. One evening she said to me, "I just want to feel held again. Not just physically, I mean in spirit. I want someone to look at me like I'm still somebody's treasure." That stuck with me, because it's the quiet truth so many carry. They want to feel like they still bring joy, that their presence still stirs emotion, that they're not just passing time. They want to feel desired, not in the fleeting way of youth, but in a way that says, "I choose you," even now, especially now. When a good man is present in her life, that emotional horizon gets closer. She doesn't have to pretend. She doesn't have to perform. She gets to be. And in being herself, she gets to remember all the parts of her that time tried to tuck away. The flirt, the dreamer, the woman who once wrote poems in the margins of her school books, the woman who wanted to see Paris but settled for postcards, the one who still hums when she cooks. A man who listens, who laughs with her, who reaches across the table just to touch her hand, gives her permission to be all of that again. It's not about grand romance. It's not about sweeping gestures. It's the small things that matter most now. The way he remembers how she takes her tea, the way he looks at her when she forgets what she was saying and gently fills in the gap without making her feel foolish. The way he shows up, again and again. That consistency, that shared rhythm, brings a peace that can't be bought. It allows her to breathe a little easier, knowing she's not alone in this stretch of road. And when she feels that kind of companionship, that kind of attention, it fills a space inside her that she may not have even realized was still aching. Let me be honest, not all women want or need a man at this stage. Some have found deep contentment in solitude or in friendships or in their faith. But for those who do long for a man's presence, it's not out of weakness. It's out of a desire for shared meaning, for conversation that flows without effort, for knowing someone's out there who gets it, who's lived through the same history, who knows what it meant to lose a friend to polio or to buy their first car in a decade that's now just a faded photograph. That kind of understanding is gold. And when it comes wrapped in kindness, in shared silence, In gentle laughter, it gives her something beautiful to carry into the twilight of her life. So what do these women ultimately want to feel? They want to feel alive, not busy, not distracted, alive in the heart. They want to feel that they are still capable of connection, that they still have something to give and receive. They want to feel seen, not for what they've done, but for who they are. A man's presence can be the mirror that reflects back all the beauty she forgot was still inside. He can be the voice that says, "You still move me." And when she hears that, when she feels that, something in her settles, something in her sings. In the end, life becomes about moments, about meaning, about the people who walk beside us as the world gets quieter. And for many women over 70, having a man by their side doesn't complete them, but it does remind them that their story still matters, that their heart still beats with hope, and that before the final page turns, there's still room for warmth, for closeness, for love, even if it's the quiet kind, the lasting kind, the kind that says you were always worth it. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.